Hello, this is Tristan Hill. This is ROS Workshop Tutorial 1 Virtualize Ubuntu. In this video, we will first install VirtualBox from Oracle and use this application to host our virtual machine. And next, we will install and set up Ubuntu 20 as a virtual machine, again using this application VirtualBox. So at the end of the tutorial, you will have a virtual Ubuntu Linux running inside of VirtualBox on top of your operating system. This should work for Windows or Mac, and the entire process should take between 30 minutes to an hour, depending on your individual machine and internet connection. So we're going to go through this ROS Workshop Tutorial 1. So you can follow along on this website here. We're just going to go ahead and get started on my computer. So again, I'm going to perform this on a Windows 10 computer. This should be the same for other platforms. So we'll go to our downloads here, and this does assume you have downloaded the two prerequisite files before beginning. Those are the VirtualBox installer and the Ubuntu installation image. So we have this VirtualBox 6136 Windows installer, and this Ubuntu 2004 Ubuntu installation image. Those of you using other operating systems, you choose the appropriate installation for this here. Let's go ahead and get this going. You'll have to allow your computer to allow Oracle to make changes to your computer. Now we're going to go through the kind of standard installation process. There's just a few settings I want to point out. You can leave all this as is. I like to take these off right here. I don't need them on the desktop. I don't need them on the quick launch bar, but leave this one on there. And this may seem alarming, but this is just an important warning that we are going to allow our virtual machine to access the internet. And that's something we need, so we're going to click yes there. And now we're going to complete the installation. And we can start the application after the installation is complete. Okay, before we go any further, just wanted to repeat, we have installed the VirtualBox application from Oracle, and we did that with this installer here. So the next part, we will need this ISO file for setting up Ubuntu. Minimize that, and now we're looking at the VirtualBox Manager, or what I've been calling the VirtualBox application, and you can see it's down here with the logo here, boardship. So to start, we will go to New, the New button, and now we see this dialog box here. You can go through the individual settings and guided mode, but we're going to switch to expert mode here. So we can see it's exactly the same, but we can just see all the settings in one place. And so now we're going to choose a name for a computer. So this is computer name or host name, sometimes referred to. So I'm going to choose a representative name. I'm going to call it Ubuntu 20. And then I'm going to say dash, this is going to be my virtual machine 1. So Ubuntu 20 VM1. You can choose another name, but there are some rules. You can only use certain characters and no spaces. So notice I've left this in the default. That's where the thing is going to exist. And notice that these are set to Linux, and this is set to 64-bit. Those were automatically determined by my name, I believe, or they were the default. So make sure these are set correctly to Linux and 64-bit. Now we're going to choose the memory. So this is the RAM that your virtual machine will use during operation only. So um, your computer will dedicate a portion of your RAM to run this virtual machine while it's turned on. And when your virtual main machine turns off while you're doing something else, you have 100% of your RAM back. So a good number for this class or this exercise would be 8,000. So 8 gigs of RAM dedicated to this project. You can scroll, drag the bar over there. I like to type it in. There are 8 gigs. That'll do just fine. If you have more, you can toy with it. Adjust it. If you have less available, you'll probably get by with a little less, but that's the recommended number. Here, we're going to leave this on create a virtual hard disk now. So um, this will be the storage portion, and we'll leave that there. So to review here on this page, we have the name, the operating system type, the allocated RAM for operation, and then the allocated storage here where the installation will be stored. Now we're going to go to create. Before we move on, I just want to say this setting can be changed afterwards if you need to adjust that. These others are fixed for the remainder of the life of this machine, I believe. Then we create. So now we have a setting dialog box referring or related to the virtual hard drive. So again, the storage portion of this virtual machine. And we can leave this default unless you have any reason to change it. Here we are going to increase the size of our virtual machine. So the amount of hard drive space, or referring to as storage, that this will take up. The recommended option is 25. But you have some flexibility here. The reason I say 25 is the recommended minimum for Ubuntu 20 is 25. But we are going to install Ubuntu 20 minimal, which removes a lot of the default apps. And actually the recommended minimum is more like 10 or even a little less. Then we're going to install ROS. Those together add up to 14 or so. So I would say the very minimum for this project is 15. So if you're short on storage, you could probably go somewhere closer to 15. But I recommend 25 if it's available. And so there's that. This is a fixed number that you will not be able to change. So we're going to leave this next. Next, we'll move on. We're going to leave this here, this setting on the default VirtualBox disk image. Here, I prefer fixed size because it's faster, or claims to be faster. And then we're done with this, but we'll look against what default, put that to 25, leave that default, and move this to fixed. Click create. So now the system is taking a part of your hard drive and allocating for this project. This space, that 25 gigs or 15 to 25 gigs, the number you choose, will be used throughout the life of the project. So if you might have to move some things around to find that space if you don't have that much free. So now we are looking again at the Virtualbox Manager. The things look a little different. We have a new blue bar here. This entry represents a virtual machine. So if you were to add more, you would have more showing up in this list here. You can again see that host name or computer name, Ubuntu 20, VM1, that was chosen previously. So you could start the thing now. The start button might be the obvious next thing to do, but first I'm going to adjust some settings for performance. So we will have with this virtual machine selected as it is, we're going to click the settings button and we have a new dialog come up, and notes the settings associated with this machine, and we'll leave that as is. You can look at these, but we'll leave them as they are. And then we're going down to System, and we can see some things here. The memory was set at 8,000, and we can leave this here. Now you can see if you want to adjust this, this would be the play. This would be where you'd adjust that. And these others can be left as is. We're going to go to Processor, and here is something we're going to change. So the default is to give our virtual machine a single processor, and we are going to really bring this up here, and I'll put this up here on 6, and I'm sure 4 would do fine also, and we'll leave that there. Here we're going to, before we move on, I just want to repeat, we're going to adjust the amount of processors dedicated to our virtual machine during operation. You would obviously get those processors or cores back when you turn the thing back off. Next, we'll move over to acceleration, and we don't need to change this. We can leave it as it is. So we will go back now to display, and one more thing we're going to increase. And if this is an option on your machine, bring this all the way to maximum. I don't really see any reason to do dual monitors. You can do that if you are interested, because again, these are adjustable as you move through the process. The last thing on this page we're going to do is enable the 3D acceleration, and this will help when we do some graphics. When we have our virtual robot, this is going to help. So that is the rest we need. The rest we need here. You could look at these, but we'll leave those as is. The rest of these options we don't need to look at those for now. So I say okay. And notice we're back here. We're in this powered off state. We're finally ready to start our machine. So we're going to press the green start button. And once again, the time it takes for all of these steps will depend on your host computer, the computer that you're working on, and some of the steps will depend on your internet connection. So just be aware. Everyone's speed will be a little different. You can read these. These dialogues are related to how do you get the mouse to talk to the inner virtual machine versus your host computer. So I would turn those off when we have the chance. First, though, we have to do this. This is kind of one of the most important steps. So to recap what we've done, we have installed VirtualBox. We're setting up a virtual machine, and now we're going to boot our virtual machine for the first time. To do that, we need the installation medium or media, which is often referred to as the disk image. And we were now going to go here to find that. And we will go to add disk image. And we're going to navigate to the location that it was downloaded, most likely downloads. Once again, we're going to use the Ubuntu 2004 ISO file. And now that's there. We're going to choose that, and notice it now is shown there. Once we've done that, we can begin the first boot of our virtual operating system. I now think I can close these auto capture warnings. Okay, now we have an image of this cat. This is Fossa, the mascot of this version. Oh, uh, excuse that loud audio if you heard it. Now we are going to initiate the installation process. So we'll go over here to this install Ubuntu. First choose English if that's your choice. And I'm gonna stay on US there and do a little keyboard test. That's working, and come down here to continue. Here, this is important. Well, especially for those of you who have limited space. If you were trying one of those lower options like the 15 gig virtual disk image or space, you want to click this, but I recommend this for everyone going through the workshop. There's no reason you need the other things for this. And next, we're also going to make sure the download updates is selected. You could always do that afterwards. So if you're in a super hurry, you could do that later, but I recommend doing this now. And then we definitely want to install these extra drivers. So this will, for us, will help us with several things. So once again, minimal download updates, download third-party graphics drivers and other drivers. Now we will go to continue. Okay, now this can be slightly alarming, but remember we have set up a virtual disk, so that's the disk this is referring to. We're going to erase the virtual disk and install Ubuntu on there. So there's no harm or a threat of you losing stuff outside of the virtual machine. And there's no reason for us to manually partition or use any of the advanced features. Go to install. Now we're going to have to confirm. This is the just final confirmation that changes were made to the hard drive and virtual space in our hard drive. Now we continue. We choose our time zone. And now we're going to set up our login credentials. I'm going to use my username T-Hill, and then I'm going to be T-Hill. I don't like that as my computer name, so remember I'm going to make it match my virtual machine host name. So I'm going to say VM1 or virtual machine name as we used earlier. You can, I recommend leaving that to something simple. Now keep the username and make a password. You can choose your level of security there for this exercise. I don't need anything too complex. And I don't recommend login automatically or unchecking this. So these are the settings I recommend. Rather, not login automatically, require a password, and we don't need Active Directory. Check that carefully, that you spelled everything correct, and continue. So now we're going to begin the system installation. This is the slow part of this process. So in a moment, I will pause the video, and some of your computers may take up to 30 minutes. Some may be faster. So I recommend having a power supply available, and maybe this would be a great chance to go grab a cup of coffee. I will pause the video and we will resume when this part is done. Okay, now we are almost finished with the installation process. You can see we're getting, a message that the downloading packages portion is almost done. And this would be the packages that have been detected from the available packages since this operating system image was released. And we'll talk about the way package systems work later on in the tutorials. So we'll wait patiently for this portion to complete. Okay, the installation process there has completed, and as prompted, we are going to restart the computer. This is the virtual computer, not our host computer. So also this message refers to removing the installation medium. Since this is a virtual process, that was the .iso file that we selected earlier on in the process. So there is no physical media to remove, and so we just have to make sure we're still have the VirtualBox window selected, and now we're going to press enter. And we can see our virtual machine has restarted. Okay, I'm going to once again remove that dialog box there, or about mouse capture, and now we see the installation process was successful, or apparently up to this point. What we're looking at is the login screen. You can see my user here, username is there, and I can click that to initiate the login process and enter a password that we set up previously. And now we're going to go through a series of one-time dialogues or menu screens here that we don't have to think too much about. We can skip this. We can click next on this. You can choose whether to send that or not. Won't affect much. It'll be nice and send it. I don't like to turn the location on. That's up to you. And now we're done. So we have completed most of the process. So hang in there. So we're looking at now our virtual Ubuntu Linux inside of Windows. So you can kind of see here's, my Windows obviously out here. Here's the VirtualBox Manager, which is running everything. And here, this window inside is the virtual machine itself. We can close that. We don't need that open. And now we have a few more things to do before we are finished. This is an important box to read. This is asking if we want to upgrade to the next version of the operating system. And we're not going to do that for this tutorial at all. So we're going to stay in 20. So we're going to decline the upgrade to 22. If you see it again, please decline it again. Yes, we know we've declined the upgrade. Here is an update, and so we do want to stay updated for several reasons. We'll get the improvements in the code we want to use, and we stay more secure that way. So you can see we're going to download some updates. So you need an internet connection. So if this part crashes, that was probably just an internet connection issue. And next, we will click install now. And we're going to need that password one more time. You will need that password several times, especially throughout the first few tutorials. So I do recommend using something that is at least easy to remember, if not relatively simple. So you can see now, or while we're waiting, we're looking at the Ubuntu focal fossa mascot. So this is a Madagascar fossa. This is a cat-like animal. And over here we have some, this is our launcher. We'll go over the basics of this thing. What I'm pointing out in the launcher here, or that's not my launcher, that might be called like Quick Bar or something. But what I want to point out is we have a software updater, and it's this application, software updater, graphical application, and we need to let this complete. So turning off your machine before this completes might cause some issues. So please let this complete. And so I may have to pause the recording and we will resume when it is done. Okay, now that the updating process has completed, we're going to follow the instructions and restart the computer. Once again, this is a virtual machine computer. Inside of a computer, our host computer does not need to be restarted. Okay, now that that is complete, we can close this again. Do recommend reading that at some point. And we're going to test that everything worked by just doing a login here. That's all we're going to do. Now we have seen our desktop screen, the cat here, and in the next lesson we'll talk about how to make this thing bigger and how to do some stuff. But that's all we'll do for now. So we have successfully um, installed our operating system. But we're not just going to leave it like this. We're going to go ahead and turn it off. So go ahead and do a power off, power off, power off here. And now we're going to go find, if it's not there on your desktop showing, we're going to go find the VirtualBox application. And I did that again by clicking the cube down here. So we can see our virtual machine is here in the powered off state. And we could close this and go home, or we are home. We could close this and move on. But next we're going to do one last thing. We're going to save a copy. And so what we're going to do is with this selected, you may jump to clone, but that's not what we're going to do. We're going to leave with this selected, come to this 3 bars here, here, and then we're going to click that and go to snapshots and come up here to take snapshot. So I'm going to go through that process one more time. Previously, we may have seen the details menu, and we're going to go to our virtual machine. We're going to go here and go to the snapshots menu, and we are going to click take snapshot. Here we're going to make a name, and I'm going to call it our name one more time, Ubuntu 20 VM1, and then I'm just going to call it like initial initial boot, and I'm going to say updated with software updater GUI, and we can check that one more time and okay. Now we have made a snapshot and we can use that as a backup. So in the future, just will when we start the application up, we'll leave it just like this, click our OS, press start. That gives us a means for a fresh backup. To summarize what we've done in this video, tutorial 1, Virtualize Ubuntu, we have first installed the VirtualBox application from Oracle, and that was shown in Windows. Then in that application, we have installed and configured a virtual machine operating system inside an operating system, Ubuntu 20 VM1. We've configured some settings. We have done the initial boot, and we have updated the software packages. So there was a lot of steps there. Once again, contact me or your peers if you have any issues. Thank you for watching.